Hi, I'm Elizabeth, a medical student living in London, and in this video I wanted to talk about the experience and overcoming imposter syndrome in medicine. This will probably be quite a rambly video, so I do apologise. I will try to make it as structured and valuable as possible, but yeah, just so you know, this is the question I get asked the most. I did go from experiencing quite bad imposter syndrome when I first started medicine to basically having none at all in the last 2 years, and I think I've been very fortunate in the people I've been surrounded with, the things I've experienced, and all of that has helped change and shape the way that I view things. So hopefully through recounting my experiences and my thoughts, you might be able to overcome imposter syndrome in yourself and therefore be more able to enjoy life. So that is my goal here. I really hope this helps. First of all, I think it's very important to kind of define what imposter syndrome is exactly. I'm talking about those of us who enjoy being around patients, enjoy everything that medicine is about, but suffer because we think that we are not good enough. And for me, in the beginning, it was very much the thought of, oh my God, I've come here by accident. This was an error, and they're going to realize at some point that I'm not as smart as everyone else. I'm not as organized as everyone else. I am not as capable as everyone else. I'm going to fail all my exams, and then I'm going to leave. And this is going to be the most humiliating thing. So when you have pleasure on one side with enjoying the course and that crippling fear and anxiety on the other side, feeling as though there's everyone else who is doing fine, and then there is you, I think this is the way that I saw imposter syndrome and how I would define my early experiences. Jumping straight into it, I think that one thing that helped me is realizing that it would actually be unreasonable to not have doubts about medicine and to not have doubts about your intelligence and your performance. Because realistically, if you haven't started medicine yet, you have no evidence and no proof that you will be good at it. You don't even know if you're going to be good at university. You don't know if it's right for you, of course, because you haven't done it. And to have doubts around that, I think it's absolutely normal and it's healthy and it's fine. I think it would be unreasonable that without going into university or without starting yet to think that, oh, this is going to be perfect. I'm going to be the best doctor out there. I think that would be unreasonable. I think doubts and uncertainty within themselves are not negative. It just depends on how you interpret uncertainty itself and the feelings that surround it. Those can be positive or negative. I think that embracing uncertainty is something that will become more and more necessary as you get older, and therefore as we grow older, we do become better at it. One way that really helped me see things differently is to think that, okay, I feel anxious now because I'm not sure and I don't have enough evidence that I'm going to be good at this. When will I have that? So will it be when I've done my first lecture? Will it be when I've sat my first exam? Will it be when I've seen my first patient? When I've gone to dissection? When will I know that I can actually be a doctor? None of these points, if you just go on and on, you will see that you will never reach a point when you think, okay, this is sufficient evidence to know that I will pass or that I will be good, because even if you pass the first year, you're just going to start all over again in the second year and the third and the fourth. And actually, you're never going to know what it's like being a doctor until you are a doctor, which is 5 or 6 years down the line. And even then, you will only know what it's like to be a junior doctor. You won't know what it's like to be a reg or a consultant. I think realizing that there will be uncertainty along every single step of the way, and no matter how much information you are given, you will never know for 100% that you are right for this or that this is right for you, but you just do the best with what is there. So I think that especially when you're just starting and you're really worried about, oh my God, I don't know how this will go, just realizing that, you know what, it's fine. And that's probably never going to go away. And there's always going to be more things that I don't know about my suitability than I do. So it's really not worth stressing about it at all. While one aspect of imposter syndrome is around your own ability and capabilities, another huge part of it has to do with how you compare to others. And I think personally, this was one of the most difficult ones for me because it's a relatively competitive and difficult degree to get into. So chances are you're quite competitive, and so is everyone else. For example, for me, it felt as though everyone was the child of a doctor. It felt as though I was surrounded by people whose grandparents had Nobel Prizes in medicine, and I don't come from a medical background, and the most exposure I had to medicine apart from my placement was going to get a vaccine, because fortunately until that point I'd been very healthy. So it felt as though I was starting on the wrong foot, and these people all had an upper hand and they were going to do so much better than me. Now I think that competitiveness is fine if it's positive. It can push you forward to want to do more things, which I guess is okay, but negative competitiveness is one of the worst feelings. And I think that you should not create a competition for yourself in something that you cannot compete in. You cannot change. I cannot change my parents' professions. I cannot change what my grandparents did. I cannot change my past and how much exposure I had to medicine. These are all things that I have no power over. So it's not a competition. It doesn't matter. I should not pay attention to these things at all. I think realizing the difference between things that you can control and things that you cannot control is very, very important. For example, I've always worked full-time alongside my medical degree, which means that I couldn't go to the library as much or attend the extra talks that my friends went to. And although all of these would make me panic in the beginning, I just realized that it's just something that I cannot change. I will do the best where I can, but I'm not going to worry about this. There's no point in me feeling as though I am less than because they can do all these other things. There's definitely advantages to whatever you're doing and whatever position you are in. This advantage might be that your great grandfather was a doctor, but your other advantage might be that because you work so much outside of medicine, you have better communication with your patients, or you pay more attention when you are studying. There are sides to every single thing. I wouldn't take it for granted that people are somehow better than you or more experienced than you just because of how things seem in the beginning. And in general, I think the way that I see things in almost everything in life is what I can change and what I cannot change. If I cannot change something, there's literally no point in me paying any attention to it at all. And especially if that thing that I cannot change causes only negative feelings for me, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. If there's something that I cannot change that for some reason makes me extremely happy, I mean, that's fine. But if it's something that I cannot change and keeps me up at night because I think I'm going to fail or because I think that I'm just so much worse than everyone else, then I think that's completely pointless. I think the last point I'll mention for now is embracing the worst case scenario. Worst case was that I would fail an exam or that I would have to quit university. So realistically, my biggest fear was I would fail an exam. And well, now that seems absolutely ridiculous to me. It's not a problem to fail an exam. It doesn't mean a thing. There's retakes. There's so many systems in place to make sure that you succeed, a lot more than there are if you fail. I don't think there's anyone who got accepted into medical school, really wanted to do it and just couldn't, had to be kicked out for academic reasons. So I think that there's no point in stressing about this. And I know it sounds very, very easy on paper, but this was one of those cases that changed for me so much through talking to another doctor. And he asked me how many exams I'd failed in medical school. And I looked at him saying, excuse me, what? Of course none. It was ridiculous to me to think that I could fail an exam. And he laughed and said, oh, he failed at least one exam a year. And this was a surgeon, a qualified surgeon, a very good one also, from what others say. So that completely shifted my mindset in thinking I'm being so ridiculous because I, at that stage, could only dream of becoming a surgeon. And to think that the surgeon just very lightheartedly said, what, medical school? That's a joke. Like, if you fail, it doesn't mean a thing. You're probably going to fail something. And if you don't, I mean, it's not a big plus, really. No one's going to give you a badge for not failing. And if you're having so much anxiety around it, it's, I think, completely pointless. So I think wondering what is the worst case scenario, realistically, you do all this work and you try so hard and you sit the exam and you don't pass it for some reason. Okay, then you just wait a few weeks or months and sit it later and pass then and move on. And in the grand scheme of things, 15 years later, when you're a surgeon or a GP or whatever you want to do, you're not even going to remember that, and it's really not going to matter. So I think that my advice would be to look at these older doctors and to realize how little they care right now about their medical school, because they can really help put things in perspective for you. If you have the opportunity to be around one who's very generous with their time, just let them know about how you're feeling. Be very open and say that I think that everyone else is so much better than me and I'm kind of stressed that perhaps I'm not good enough. And I think that they can really help with putting things in perspective for you. By nature, human beings are not very good at looking at the bigger picture across large timescales. But in this case, if you can actually manage to do that, even once in a while, to realize that in the grand scheme of things, your silly little anatomy exam is really not going to matter. And my stupid final is just another like tick box exercise that I need to do along the whole scale of my existence. So it doesn't really matter at all. And I think that perspective really, really changes things. If on the other hand, your biggest fear is realizing that this actually isn't for you, then you're so lucky, because the sooner you realize that, if you do get to realize that in your first year, second year, third year, 6 years after you've become a doctor, it's fine. You can move on as soon as possible. It's not the single thing to do in the world, and it's probably not the best thing to do in the world, and definitely not the best thing to do in the world for everyone. So the sooner you realize that, I think, take it as a gift and do what you must with it, continue or move on, or just depending on your situation. So just to summarize, my first point would be that there's not enough evidence that can be given to get rid of that uncertainty, and there never will be. So the sooner you get used to that feeling of uncertainty and see it in a positive way or completely ignore it, the happier you will be. The second point would be to distinguish between competitiveness that you can change and competitiveness that you cannot. The things that you cannot, you should completely ignore. They don't matter. They're just taking away your energy. The sooner you can get used to this habit, the happier you will be. My third point is to think of the worst case scenario. What are you exactly scared of, and how actually bad would that coming true be? Obviously, I've put things in perspective by reaching out to students in years above you, or doctors even, consultants. The older the better. They can really, really help you realize that you're freaking out for absolutely no reason. And lastly, if you're only getting negative feelings around medicine and you're feeling it's not right for you, that's absolutely fine. And I think that there's no point in being scared that it is not the right thing for you. The sooner you realize that, the better. I am not particularly tied to medicine. I do it as long as I enjoy it. If at some point I feel that it's not right for me, I'm happy to move on. I find this kind of attitude a lot more calming, and it removes a lot of that pressure. If you made it so far, honestly, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I honestly hope from the bottom of my heart that anything that I said helped you at all. Please feel free to reach out to me either in the comments below or on my Instagram page, which is somewhere on my channel. I'm very, very happy to talk and hopefully give you some more advice if you'd like some. I'll try to link some good videos on imposter syndrome by people who are a lot more experienced and a lot smarter than me below, if you would like to look at those too. As always, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Be kind to yourself and others, and don't believe everything you think. Thanks. Bye.